It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host this morning. You know, there are a lot of very disturbing and uncomfortable issues that we really need to take a look at here. And I got to tell you, having perused a lot of news articles this morning, it's really amazing to me how intellectually dishonest this nation is. Both those in power and those who are subjected to it. Those in power are literally blatantly lying to the American people. Those in the position of being subjected to that are openly and willingly accepting it. And I have to tell you, I find that even more problematic. I expect politicians to lie. But I expect Americans to have the wisdom and the knowledge and the courage of their convictions to see through that, to critically think their way through the challenges and the issues, and to hold them accountable. And that's what I don't see. We're going to cover 4 topics this morning. The first is going to be the outright contradictions and lies of the Obamacare and the administration relating to Obamacare, the statements and the misrepresentations that are coming out here. You can keep your health care. You can't keep your health care. Some can keep their health care. You can keep your doctor no matter what, period. Now we find out that you can't. The fact that no one's actually signing up for this except the poor. I got to tell you, the betrayal that's going on here is beyond the pale. The torrent of lies that come from this administration are actually pathological in the clinical sense. In other words, they can't tell when they're lying and when they're telling the truth anymore. And I believe that is the truth. I believe that they are not capable of discerning truthfulness from lies. They're so deeply and fully invested that they are not capable of determining and discerning truth. Our second topic is going to be treasonous clergy. Boy, am I going to get a ton of hate mail about this. And I don't care. It's time someone spoke out about it. There are clergy around the nation that are selling out their flock. These are the shepherds who are supposed to be leading their people appropriately, and they are selling out their flock to protect themselves and their churches. You know, this falls right in line. There's an article I'm going to review today called "Healthcare from the Pulpit: How Churches Are Spreading the Word About Obamacare." Now, these are the same churches that won't allow you to come in and speak politically in their church because it's a separation of powers issue for them. And yet they're the same ones who go to the DHS's clergy response team meetings, where the fascists who are trying to get church leaders to keep their flocks in line, and they use the 501c3 tax exemption that churches get as a weapon. Church leaders and shepherds that are willing to lead their flocks to the firing line for whatever reason are engaged in a treason that is unspeakable. And we're going to discuss that. The third topic is dependency on government and how it has become an addictive form of slavery. And it is almost it is almost on a slate with the issues surrounding the principle that someone who is kidnapped becomes enamored or invested in their kidnapper's mission and goals. Hostage taking. I can't think of the word what they call that, but my point is this: something is desperately wrong with the issues that the nation is so willing to become dependent and addicted. We have developed as a race a dependency on government that is unknown in the history of mankind. And I got to tell you that once people become enslaved to the largesse and the freebies and the this and the that and the being told what to do, they're incapable of making independent decisions, and they will do anything to retain their benefits, their entitlements, quote unquote. They'll sell out their neighbors. They'll sell out their employers, their families, and even their children to get another shot of the drug of largesse from the public treasury. Our fourth topic is going to be Libertarian, Tea Party, and Patriot. What's in a name? There's a new poll out there which is disingenuous to say the least. It is the desire and the attempt of the propagandists in the nation to work to consistently and continuously foster division, misinformation, and misdirection. What it is and this article identifies the issue that some libertarians don't agree with Tea Party concepts. Well, how about this? How about just the unified principles of constitutional government? How about self-governance? How about actualized and unified loyalty to our nation? How about fiscal responsibility? How about honor and integrity and honesty and self-reliance? How about those factors? How about those principles? The truth is, the rest of it is just marketing and verbal diarrhea. And that is what we are inundated with. It's like a fire hose and trying to drink out of it. The torrent of lies and misrepresentations and misdirection is just stunning in its scope. All right, I'm going to get into our first topic because this is related to the Obamacare contradictions and the health care issue. You know, there's an article out on Weasel Zippers that the White House website is still promising that you can keep your health insurance if you like it. It actually says right on the website, this says healthcare for Americans is the topic, and it's on whitehouse.gov. It says on March 23, 2010, President Obama signed the Affordable Care Act into law, putting in place comprehensive reforms that improve access to affordable health coverage for everyone, blah, 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 blah. For those Americans who already have health insurance, the only changes you will see under the law are new benefits, better protections from insurance company abuses, and more value for every dollar you spend on health care. Quote, if you like your plan, you can keep it, and you don't have to change a thing due to the health care law. Now, I got to tell you, simultaneously, what we're finding is that, one, the administration knew back in March 23rd of 2010, more than 3 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, that millions of Americans were going to lose their health insurance because they and I heard some pundits last night putting up the argument, well, if you can grandfather your plan in, but the grandfathering has a hook or an out, a loophole. And here's what it says. If your insurance policy is changed for any reason in any way, shape, or form, your grandfathering is dead. And so all it takes for the insurance company to redirect itself through that loophole is to change your policy. And then they can immediately jack the rates and abide by the Obamacare policies, which are absurd. Why must everyone, irrespective of their age or their health or even their sex, have mandatory maternity care. I mean, why are people in their 50s and 60s and 70s forced to have maternity care? This approach of one size fits all is so absurd on its face. I mean, who in their 60s, who in their late 50s is having children? I get it. You know, there's the occasional person who's in their 50s and they've married a woman who's capable of having children who's much younger, and I can get that. But listen, let's be candid. That is the exception and certainly not the rule. Most people in their 50s are married to people in their 50s. And most people in their 50s, in fact, 99% of them, aside from the occasional scientific wonder, are beyond the age of childbearing. Physically. It is not physically possible. And so anyone in their 60s, anyone in their 70s, unless they're Abraham and his wife having a baby at 90, is completely, the idea of having maternity care for those folks is completely disingenuous. It is so outside the scope and the pale. It is inexcusable. And look, the point is this. They know that those people cannot use that. They know it. And they knew back in 2010, and I've got an image here of Barack Obama's own signature on a document where they anticipated that up to 67% of all existing health care plans would be terminated by the insurance companies and folded up underneath Obamacare. They knew that Americans were going to lose their health care. And this president, as late as a month and a half ago, came out and said, you will not be forced to leave your existing insurance policy, and you will not be forced to leave your doctor or change your doctor. And he knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that that was not the truth. There have been well over 1.5 million cancellations so far, and the estimate now is running into the 14 to 16 million range. And every time I hear a pundit who supports Obamacare talk about this, they immediately pull out of their pocket the argument that says, well, 30 million people are going to be covered. So, what are you trying to say? It's okay to sacrifice 16 million so that 30 million can get coverage? Justify that in any way, shape, or form with any rational or legal or even a moral argument. There isn't one. It's unconscionable. The truth of the matter is, Obamacare is bad for this nation, not because it's a complete and disruptive separation from all that we know, not simply because it is the first time that we have allowed a government to dictate that you must do something in order to just fog a mirror and breathe in the nation. Not because it reduces your individual liberty and your own sovereignty as a human being, your personal sovereignty, but not because it takes over 1/6 of our national economy, not because it's a control mechanism for the ability to for government to have the ability to build dossiers on every single American, not because it contributes to the largesse and the apathetic the growth of and the cancer of government dependency, but for all of those things and many more. The truth of the matter is, this policy, this particular act, law, whatever you want to call it, is the beginning of what we will see as a literal deluge, a torrent of government mandates that are pouring forth from regulatory agencies that are, or these administrative agencies that are extra constitutional on their face. Health and Human Services, the EPA, these people are going completely bonkers. They are writing rules and regulations that parade about as law, and all of it with a lie on the lips of the people who are front-facing towards the public. They consistently disregard the truth and they spew what they know to be falsehoods in an effort to get buy-in. And the sycophantic press is complicit in the betrayal and the treason of what's being told to America. The truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, that everything in this nation is out of control. Everything. The idea that this administration can sit here and dictate to you what you must do in order to just be a citizen has no basis in constitutionality. It has no basis in the rule of law. For the record, by the way, the national healthcare system in England is pulling the plug on an IT system that they built to try to control and corral in their massive central planning. If you want a quick view of where things lead on these massive central planning situations, all you've got to do is look over at Europe. Massive central planning does not work, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in job development, whether it's in food stamps, whether it's in the creation of a dependency state. No matter how much you spend, no matter how deep the depth of involvement, no matter how deep the depth of acceptance by the public, no matter how acquiescent the slaves are to their own enslavement and how deep their participation, eventually the money runs out, the systems are overwhelmed, and the infrastructure begins to collapse. The UK is abandoning their own misguided efforts at socialism, and we as a nation are running not into socialism, but headlong into fascism. And it is fascism, ladies and gentlemen. We're stepping way over the boundaries of socialism. The fact that we are utilizing the principles of fascism, where we are creating and engendering these enemy groups, is the proof. Socialism is a means of government having control. But fascism has a level to it that of malevolence that is beyond the constraints of socialism. And when you hear about our Congress discussing whether we can kill Americans with drone strikes, you have to recognize it for what it is, ladies and gentlemen. I can only say this to you. This is not about health care. This is all about control and identifying who stands where. And that's when fascism becomes dangerous. This cannot end well for America, and it cannot end well for the United States of America. And unfortunately, our nation is completely unaware, in blithe ignorance of her danger. The level of contradiction, the pathological lies that exude from this administration and this particular president, and the confusion that is sown by him, and in addition to that, the sycophants in the press and the Ministry of Propaganda, the mainstream media, who are desperate to support and bolster their claim that this man is the Messiah come to life, to save the United States of all of its evils. It is so completely unacceptable on so many levels, I actually am struggling with the correct response. And I'm not often at a loss for words. I believe, and it's hard not to look at this in its truest sense. There is a pathological a clinically pathological route and course that this administration has taken. And whether it's that they began that way or descended into that or migrated to it, I really can't say. But I can tell you that, the guy who goes forth with the concept that he knows best how to save the world is more dangerous than the guy who goes forth with the idea that he's going to damage and wreak havoc. Because the guy who goes forth with the principles and the concepts that he can save the world eventually falls prey to the same self-injurious predilections that the tyrant goes forth with, except he doesn't even recognize and acknowledge it within himself. H.L. Mencken said to us that those who, and I'm paraphrasing this, but those who look forth or look to go forth and save the world are always those who create or produce the worst result. And to tell us what they know to be lies, and then turn around and utilize the argument that, well, I didn't know, is a blatant and false, is a blatant lie. I hear the people in the media, and they try not to use the word lie when they ascribe it to the president, because they're trying to show deference to the office. But with all due respect, this administration knew back in 2010 that millions upon millions were going to lose their health care. And to this day, on whitehouse.gov, it says, if you like your plan, you can keep it, and you don't have to change a thing due to the health care law. The president has said over and over and over again, this isn't a one-time slip in a speech. I mean, if I were to sit there and put together a compendium of all of the times that he has made the statement that this will not affect your existing health care plan, and if you like your doctor, you can keep it. If you like your health insurance plan, you can keep it, and nothing will change for you. If I had an example of every one of those times that statement has been uttered by this man, I could buy us all lunch. And yet he knew. He knew in 2010, 3.5 years ago, at the time of passage, that this thing would turn into the loss of all of the existing health care plans that were out there. There is something lawless. There is something criminal, dark, sinister about this administration and the way in which they are manipulating and turning everything in this nation upside down. We heard the term fundamental change come out of this president's mouth before he ever became elected. And now we understand what that means. Critical thinkers who heard it then recognized it for what it was. It wasn't a promise. It was a warning. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to talk about clergy in the United States and how they are betraying their own flock. And I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there is a special place reserved for those who are willing to engage in that level of treason. Call it what you want. Call it redemption. Call it karma. Call it answering to your master, talking to the big man upstairs, standing before your maker. Boy, there's something really, really wrong with that. And somebody's going to have to answer for it. We'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Find us on the web by going to americasvoicenow.org. You can watch our show live there every day, 8 to 10 a.m. We'll be right back.